Grab your tea, have a seat, and sip on this. Delicious. Today's sip, titled Life on the Spectrum, is brought to you by the Amanda Seals and Club Shay Shay podcast discourse that's been going on. I'm not really here to insert my opinion on it, but it did spark some thoughts. So let's get into it. We're gonna discuss 1, how we all fall on the spectrum. 2, the types of autism and where you could fall on said spectrum. 3, how we should research and educate ourselves before speaking on topics, as well as creating a space for conversation to educate ourselves on said topics. If we have questions, create the space. 4, I think the most important is taking a page out of someone else's brain. We could all learn from people who think and feel differently and express differently. So have you ever found yourself getting anxious in social settings? Have you ever found it difficult to understand people's thoughts and feelings? Have you ever found it difficult as an adult to make friends, or you prefer to just be alone altogether? Well, you may just be on the spectrum, because those are early signs in adults that you fall on the spectrum, and these are just the facts. So we all fall on the spectrum, not necessarily meaning that you are autistic. In the clip, and I already talked about research and educating myself, and I'm gonna be honest, I did not watch that full podcast with Amanda and Shay Shay because I got the gist of it. However, the things that I did take away from it, I know Amanda mentioned that she falls on that spectrum, right? And she just hasn't been clinically diagnosed. Well, I have people, close relatives in my life who have fallen on that spectrum in different places. Now, you're probably most familiar with autism just itself, but there are actually 5 different types of autism. And you may also just be most familiar with Asperger's syndrome or those who might have Down syndrome, but the reality is that there's a full spectrum, and at some place, it's just like the LGBTQ spectrum. I'm blanking on the name right now, but we all fall on that, whether you identify as gay, straight, all the things, right? As we move into Mental Health Awareness Month, I think this is important to just discuss how the mind works and how everybody's brain works differently. There are 5 different types of autism. Again, you're most familiar with Asperger's syndrome. There's also Rett syndrome. There's also something called CDD, Hamer's syndrome, I believe, and PDP, NOS, which stands for something much larger. I think it's important to really think about or research the things and educate ourselves on these things so that we can communicate better with one another and we can understand each other more versus believing what we want to believe because this is just how we think. We got to get out of that. Let's all grow up. And the reason I say it's so important to take a page out of someone else's brain is because we do process emotions and thoughts differently. And for those who are closest to me who do fall on the spectrum, who have been clinically diagnosed, I learned so much from the way that they think because 1, they hyperfixate on their interest and are so detail oriented on the things that they really love and are interested in, which I think is amazing. And it's a certain brilliance that comes from that space. 2, they tell it like it is. They're the most authentic people that I know because they don't necessarily have the social cues that Western society has made us believe are the only ways to commune with one another and to socialize with one another. They just do things differently, and I think there's a way to teach and also to learn from the way other people think and to be accepting of that and non-judgmental. And I feel like living a life on the spectrum and understanding the vast spectrum of how things can be in any way, whether that's how we identify sexually, how we identify mentally, how we identify socially, all of these things I think are important if we want to be better as a civilization and understanding one another. Then my hope is that we can just work to try to forge a better understanding of one another and understand that we all think and operate differently, and that's okay. And we could take something from everybody's brain and everybody's book. Anyways, comment when you learn something. I'll see you next Thirsty Thursday. Sippas.